Hello and welcome to Harmony Reservoir Piper Interoperability Demonstration video. In this video, we will showcase interoperability feature which allows for transferring information and well data from Harmony Reservoir to Piper. The question that comes up is why this feature is important. So usually we have Harmony Reservoir users who are mostly reservoir engineers analyze and model well behavior by looking at the well by itself as a standalone well. But in the real world, the well is actually connected to a living system where we have pipelines, we have wells, facilities, and so on. So we can model the well in a gathering system rather than by itself. This is normally done in Piper by production or facilities engineers. This eventually could help with making more informed decisions on how to manage wells and surface network. So the importance of the interoperability feature is that it provides the means of transferring information and data from Harmony Reservoir to Piper. In a sense, it's closing the gap between reservoir engineers who have an existing work that could be leveraged in Piper by looking at the whole system from a gathering system point of view by production and facilities engineers. Here we are looking at Harmony Enterprise project. For the purpose of this video, we have an existing project that contains some work that's been done, and we are interested in exporting a set of wells that are relevant for further analysis in Piper. I actually have made a group called Piper Wells that contains the number of wells that are of interest to me for export purposes. Let's proceed to export those wells to Piper. If I go all the way to the top toolbar, there is now an option called Export. Clicking that options, it gives me few selections that I can make. Looking at the one at the bottom right here, it is Export to Piper. And by the way, if you're not seeing this option available for you, it's probably that you're running an older version of Harmony Enterprise. This export functionality is only available starting at Harmony Enterprise 2018.3 version. So let's proceed and click Export to Piper. The Piper Export Welcome window will come up. There is a brief description of the purpose of this export window, and you could also click here to learn more about it if you are interested. And of course, you get to choose not to see this going forward by clicking skip the screen next time. So let's proceed and click next from here. There are two types of export or reason for exporting to Piper. One may be interested in building a gathering system or trying to validate it matches reality in some shape or form, or one may be interested in forecasting wells. In this video, we will be looking at both types of export in details. Building and calibration. So what do we mean by building? Let's say you want to make a brand new system or file in Piper. You can leverage all the data in Harmony to help build it. This makes building faster, and it also preserves naming conventions so everything is consistent. For calibration, we normally use measured rate and measured pressure and see if our Piper model is giving us similar results. Previously, we had to import this kind of data manually to Piper, but since this data is already available for us in our Harmony project, we can also leverage that. And this is what the date selector is all about here. You can go in and pick a date that is meaningful. To understand the date selector, let's review the production history of all the wells. I'm going to jump back to diagnostics to see the production history. We can see here we have the list of wells, and I can flip between wells to view their production history on an individual basis. I can also select a group of wells and plot their production history in one plot. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to select wells under Piper Wells group. Right click and then select constituent wells. Now all the production history of all the wells under this group are plotted. And just by the look of it, I can see the production history range somewhere between late 1980s to 2018. And we can also see that not all the wells have production data for the entire range of history. So some wells start somewhere in the 1990s, and some wells start somewhere late in the late 2000s. So what that means, if I select the date, the export tool is going to look at the production history of each well at that specified date and pick a point of pressure and a point of rate for that specific well and report that into an exported file so that I can import it later on. So by default, by looking at this now, if I pick, for example, September 15, 2001, it's not gonna have production data for all the wells. Only some of the wells are going to have that those points. And we can see later on when we import the file into Piper, we will be able to see the wells that actually have production and pressure data at that specified date. I'm going to go back to the export wizard now. I'm going to go ahead and pick 2001 September 15 since my data is very old. What is this going to do for me is export production rate and pressure at that specified date. So I can compare what Piper calculates on that date to what is actually happening in the field. Here we can specify where our file should live, and we can also give it a name. I'm going to go ahead and save it as Building and Calibration as is. Once we are happy with our selection, we can go ahead and click Next. In this step, it's going to ask us which wells we are interested in. So I'm going to shared group since we have a number of wells that are already set aside for this purpose. I am going to select all the wells under Piper Wells group. Once I'm happy with my selection, I'm going to go ahead and click Export. It is going to run through and write all well attributes. We are getting locations, names, reservoir data, and that calibration data which we have specified a date for, so specifically measured rates and pressures. This summary window is telling us whether we got all the wells that we wanted. It also tells us if there are corrections applied. In this case, we have wells that had flow path correction. Piper has to have tubing in the wellbore. It doesn't support casing flow path, so the correction is to set tubing to casing diameter and set casing to any number that is bigger than that. Previously, Piper users had to manually correct this if even noticed. You also get a log file, but we will come back to it in the next iteration because it is more meaningful for us. With this we are done, so let's go ahead and click Done, and from here we can go to Piper. In Piper we have a blank file, basically a brand new project, and we are building. So we are going to utilize that exported file from Harmony Enterprise to help build this project. So I'm going to go ahead and click Import and then select Harmony Enterprise. I'm going to navigate to the file that we have exported, which is Building and Calibration, and then select Open. This window is basically telling us that any existing data will be overwritten. Because we are dealing with a new project, we have no concern here. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It is going to bring all my wells and drop them into the map because it has the locations information, and now we can add delivery points and create my facility. Basically, I can also connect them to pipelines. But more importantly, what data did it bring in? So I'm going to go ahead and click Wells and Well Editor. I'm going to expand the well editor window so that we can see everything. We can see it brought in all the naming conventions, and the on-stream date column has been populated. In the well deliverability tab, we can see it brought in the rates from Harmony Enterprise at that date which we have specified during the export process. It actually created a conventional reservoir. If we click in one of the wells, we can see it populates all the information for a conventional reservoir. If we go to well fluid properties, we can see it also populate based on what is available in Harmony Enterprise file that we have exported from. Going to wellbore description, we can see it brought all the wellbore information for all the wells except for the first one, because that first well does not have wellbore information. Going to well options here, we can see there are some measured pressure information available, and those are brought in at that specified date during the export process. So this is briefly the building and calibration side of export functionality or interoperability feature between Harmony Reservoir and Piper. And now we will move to the second type of export, which is forecasting. For this type of export, we are interested in forecasting, so we need to export analytical models. Of course, we are still exporting all other production data, wellbore information and attributes, things like locations, well names, and so on. But the real purpose is to export the analytical models. So we can go ahead and specify a location for our exported file. I'm going to call it forecast and save it in this location. And then click next. Again, we need to pick wells of interest. I'm going to go ahead and select wells which I have set aside for this purpose under shared group. I'm going to select all wells under Piper Wells group and then click next. This window gives us a list of analytical models that are contained in the selected wells. The list is categorized based on the model type. In Harmony, one well can have many models, but in Piper, each well can only have one model. In this window, we need to select relevant models only. If multiple models are selected for a well, we will be forced to select only one model in the next window. For the purpose of this video, we will pick the models that are handily named for us as Piper. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the models that are not relevant. You will also notice down here we have an option to include wells without analysis in this export. Maybe we are planning new wells in Harmony that has no production history and we haven't built an analytical models for them yet, and we want to add those into our Piper model. So this option becomes handy. In this case, it is grayed out because all my wells contain analyses. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. Here we have got a preview of which wells are paired with which analyses. We can see if we made an error, we can go back and fix it. If we are happy, we can proceed to export. This type of export is going to take longer. The biggest reason for this is because it's checking for sand phase pressure calculations for each well, and if it's not complete, it will recalculate sand phase pressure. So depending on how many wells that require recalculations, it may take longer. It is worth noting that sand phase recalculations only happen to the exported file. In other words, Harmony Enterprise data are not changed or modified in any way. Once the export process is complete, we get this summary window. In this summary window, we are able to tell how many wells are exported successfully, how many wells that had corrections performed, and how many wells were excluded from the export. In our example here, we have 19 wells out of the 21 wells that were selected were exported successfully. We have one well that had flow path correction. As I mentioned before, Piper has to have tubing in the wellbore. It doesn't support casing flow path. We also have two wells that were excluded from the export. One is due to failed sand phase pressure recalculations, and a second well that is due to incomplete wellbore data. Now, how do we know which wells have gone through corrections, which wells were excluded from export, so we can go back to our project and fix those issues? Hence, there is a log file. If we click in View Export Log File here, we are able to see detailed information about the wells that has been modified or failed. We can see here, for example, the 3 wells that were either modified or failed, and now we can go back and take further steps to either fix those issues or be okay with the corrections. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be okay with the corrections, and I'm not going to worry about the excluded wells. So I'm going to go ahead and close the log file. And now we are done. And we can go to Piper and import this exported file. In Piper, I have a pre-set up project where I have my gathering system already in place. This is the same set of wells that I have in Harmony Reservoir. And all I want to do is bring in my analytical models so I could do forecasting in Piper. We can go ahead and import the exported file from Harmony Reservoir. I'm going to go to Import, and then Harmony Enterprise, and then navigate to that exported file, which I call Forecast from Harmony Reservoir, and then click Open. Again, the same warning message is going to pop up. In this case, we have an existing project with an existing set of wells. So we should be aware that all the information, well data, and associated reservoir data will be overwritten. In my situation, the wells information are exactly the same. So I'm okay with overwriting the information. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. The importation process is going to start. And now we can see even the symbols of the wells has changed to reflect the type of analytical model each well has. To check out my analytical models, we can go to Wells and Wells Editor. I'm going to expand the Well Editor window so we can see everything. Now you can see all the wells have an analytical model attached to them, except for those 2 wells which have failed during the export process as we have outlined before. If we go to Well Deliverability, we can see the analytical model's parameters. I can flip between wells and see each well analytical model. So now we can use these models and conduct our forecasting. With this, we conclude this demonstration. Thank you for watching.